I pulled into the driveway 3 days earlier than planned. The offshore supervisor had ordered an emergency evacuation as Hurricane Celeste shifted toward the Gulf. After 6 months on that rig, I had imagined coming home differently. Maybe my daughter running into my arms, maybe my wife smiling from the porch. Instead, the house sat still beneath the heavy August sun. The paint was more faded than I remembered. The front door stuck the way it always had. Inside, everything felt too neat, too perfect. My wife, Lauren, liked things that way. Order meant control to her. "Lauren?" I called. "Isabella?" No answer. I checked Isabella's room first. Her bed was made tight enough to bounce a coin. That wasn't like my 10-year-old at all. She usually left paintbrushes soaking in cups and sketch pads open on the floor. Now her pencils were lined in a straight row. Her favorite sketchbook was gone. My phone buzzed. Lauren. "Why are you home?" she asked, her voice sharp. "The storm shut the platform down. Where's Isabella?" A pause. "She's at summer camp. I told you about Pastor Caldwell's youth retreat." I didn't remember. 6 months of broken satellite calls and 14-hour shifts blur things. When did she leave? 2 weeks ago. She's thriving. They're teaching discipline. Send me the address. Another pause. Longer. Faith Haven Fellowship, County Road 62. Please don't make a scene. I was already in my truck. The drive took 30 minutes. Asphalt turned to gravel, then dust. Cotton fields stretched endlessly beneath a pale sky. The church building rose from the flat land, old stone with a new metal extension tacked onto the back. The lot was nearly empty. I walked around the side and heard singing. Thin children's voices. I followed the sound to the fields. There were children among the cotton rows, 15, maybe more. Long sleeves, wide hats, sacks over their shoulders. They were working. A man in boots stood watching with a radio clipped to his belt, and there, in the 3rd row, I saw her. Isabella. I would know her anywhere, even from behind, even smaller than I remembered. Her arms were scratched raw, her neck burned red from the sun. She moved slowly, like she was trying not to fall. Something inside me snapped cold. I walked into the field. "That's private property," the man said. "That's my daughter." Isabella turned. Her eyes widened. "Dad?" She dropped the sack and ran toward me. Then she collapsed in the dirt, sobbing so hard she couldn't breathe. I lifted her. She felt too light. "They said you left me," she cried into my shirt. "They said I had to work because I was bad." The other children had stopped picking. They stared at us, hopeful, afraid. "You need to leave," the man warned into his radio. "Where are their parents?" I demanded. They signed guardianship forms. I carried Isabella toward the building. 3 men stepped in front of me. One older, polished, smiling too calmly. "I'm Pastor Caldwell," he said smoothly. "You're disrupting a structured rehabilitation program. She's 10. She has behavioral struggles. She's sunburned and bleeding. She's learning responsibility. Show me where they sleep. That's restricted." Isabella clung to me. "Please don't leave me." I called Lauren. "Did you sign anything?" I asked. "It was just paperwork, a development agreement." "You signed custody." Silence. "They said she needed structure. She needed her father." I hung up. "I'm taking her," I told the pastor. "That would be unlawful." "Try me." One of the men grabbed my arm. I twisted free. Another reached for Isabella. I turned so the pepper spray hit my back instead of her face. Pain burned, but I didn't let go. Then sirens. A deputy pulled in, lights flashing. The pastor stepped forward first. "Officer, this man is attempting kidnapping." "That's my daughter." The deputy looked at Isabella's face, sunburned, cracked lips, trembling hands. He hesitated. Then he said, "I need to see the inside of this facility." 4 hours later, they found the basement. 17 children sleeping on thin mats. 4 hours of rest per night. The rest of the day was labor and discipline. The cotton was being sold. 42 children total across multiple sites. By sunset, more officers arrived. Child Protective Services, state investigators. Pastor Caldwell was arrested that night. Lauren, too. She had recruited other families. She said she thought she was helping them build character. Later, we learned that she had grown up in abuse herself. She believed suffering made you strong. It explained things. It didn't excuse them. Isabella went to the hospital for dehydration and exhaustion. Physically, she recovered. Emotionally, it took longer. She stopped drawing at first, said art was lazy. That hurt most of all. But slowly, the pencils came back out. One morning, I found her at the kitchen table sketching sunflowers. We moved to a small apartment. I left offshore work and found a local welding job. I stayed. The trial lasted months. Pastor Caldwell received a long federal sentence for trafficking and abuse. Several staff members were convicted. Lauren went to prison. The other children went home. Some healed faster than others. 2 years later, the community center hosted an art exhibition for survivors. Isabella agreed to show her work. She titled it Breaking Free. One painting showed a field at sunrise, another at noon, the last at sunset. In each image, broken chains faded lighter and lighter. A woman bought 3 pieces for her counseling center. She said they show that healing takes time. That night, Isabella fell asleep in the truck after the exhibition. "Do you think Mom would be proud?" she whispered before drifting off. "More than you know," I told her. Years passed. She grew taller, stronger. The nightmares faded. On the anniversary of the rescue, we drove back to County Road 62. The church was gone. The land had been replanted, this time with sunflowers instead of cotton. "It's better this way," she said. "Yeah." "Do you think the other kids are okay?" "I think they're finding their way." She nodded. "We're not just survivors," she said. "We're more than what happened." She was right. We stood in the field as the flowers swayed in the wind. Evil doesn't always look evil. Sometimes it hides behind promises, behind polished words, behind people who claim to help. What saved her wasn't luck alone. It was listening to that quiet voice that said something wasn't right. It was showing up. 3 years after the arrests, life didn't feel normal. It felt earned. Isabella was 13 now, taller, sharper, her dark hair usually tied back when she painted. She had a way of studying the world quietly before speaking, like she was measuring whether it deserved her words. I had traded offshore rotations for steady work at a fabrication shop. The pay was smaller, the hours were regular. Every evening at 6, I was home. That mattered. But healing isn't a straight road. Some nights, Isabella still woke up gasping, convinced she was back in the basement. When that happened, I would sit beside her bed until her breathing slowed. Sometimes she'd ask me to leave the door open. Sometimes she'd ask if I was sure I wasn't going back to the rig. "I'm not leaving," I would say, and I meant it. The nonprofit I volunteered with had grown. We visited schools and churches, warning families about fraudulent character-building programs. We taught parents to ask questions, to demand access, to never surrender rights without legal counsel. Isabella surprised me one afternoon. "I want to speak," she said. "At the school assembly?" She nodded. "You don't have to." "I know. That's why I want to." The auditorium was packed. Parents, teachers, students. Isabella stood at the podium, hands steady. "They told me my dad didn't want me," she began, "that I had to work to earn love." The room went silent. "But love doesn't make you earn it," she said. "Love shows up." I saw teachers wiping their eyes. She didn't talk about every detail. She didn't have to. The truth carried itself. Afterwards, a boy approached her quietly. "My mom signed me up for something like that," he whispered, "but I don't want to go." That conversation led to an investigation. The program turned out to be legitimate, but poorly regulated. Because Isabella spoke up, new safety policies were implemented.
Open visitation, daily parent calls, independent oversight. Her voice was changing things. Not everyone liked that. One evening, I found a letter in our mailbox. No return address. "Stay quiet," it read. "You ruined good men's lives." My chest tightened. I didn't show Isabella. I took it straight to the police. Deputy Harris, older now, promoted, assured me threats were common after high-profile convictions. "Most of them are noise," he said, "but we'll keep an eye out." Still, I installed cameras, double-checked locks. Old fears don't disappear. They evolve. That summer, Isabella received an invitation. A National Youth Art Foundation had seen her Breaking Free series online. They wanted her to submit to a competitive exhibition in Chicago. She hesitated. "What if they only like my story?" she asked. "What if they don't like my art?" "Your story is part of you," I said, "but your talent stands on its own." She worked for weeks on a new piece. This one wasn't about fields. It was about water. A girl standing waist-deep in dark ocean waves, holding a lantern that didn't go out, even when the tide rose. She titled it, "Still Standing." When the acceptance email came, she read it 3 times before believing it. She had been selected. We flew to Chicago together, her first flight since everything happened. She gripped my hand during takeoff, but didn't panic. At the gallery, her painting hung among dozens of others, different styles, different stories. But when people stopped in front of hers, they lingered. A curator approached us. "She paints resilience without bitterness," the woman said. "That's rare." Isabella smiled softly. "I don't want to be angry forever," she replied. "I want to be free." That night in the hotel room, she stood by the window overlooking the city lights. "Dad?" "Yeah?" "If that hurricane hadn't happened, would you have still come?" The question hit harder than anything she'd said on stage. "I don't know when, but I would have." She studied my face like she was deciding whether to accept that. Then she nodded. "I think so too." Back home, life kept moving. Therapy shifted from trauma processing to future planning. She talked about studying art therapy one day, helping kids who felt trapped the way she once had. "Because someone has to go back for them," she said. That sentence stayed with me. On the 4th anniversary of the rescue, we visited the sunflower field again. The flowers were taller now. Isabella brought her sketchbook and sat in the grass. "Do you ever feel guilty?" she asked, without looking up. "For what?" "For not coming sooner." "Every day." "Sometimes," I admitted. "But guilt can't change the past. It can only guide what we do next." She nodded. "I don't want you to carry it forever," she said quietly. I swallowed hard. "I don't have to protect you anymore," I told her. She smiled. "I'm not. I just love you." As the sun dipped low, she finished her sketch. This one was different. In the center of the field stood 2 figures, one tall, one smaller, not trapped, not chained, just standing, side by side. "Title?" I asked. She closed the book. "Came Back." And for the first time since that August afternoon years ago, I realized something. We hadn't just escaped. We had rebuilt. Together. 5 years after the rescue, the world no longer saw Isabella as that girl from the trafficking case. They saw an artist. She was 15 when her guidance counselor called us in for a meeting. "There's a pre-college arts residency in Boston," the counselor said. "Highly selective, fully funded." My stomach tightened. Boston meant distance. Distance meant letting go. Isabella looked at me carefully, reading my face the way she always did. "It's only 6 weeks," she said gently. 6 weeks. Once 6 months offshore had almost cost me everything. Now even 6 weeks felt heavy. "You should apply," I said. She smiled, not the small, cautious smile from her healing years, but the full one, bright, certain. The acceptance letter arrived in April. She got in. The night before she left, she sat on the edge of her bed, surrounded by half-packed bags and sketchbooks. "Dad?" "Yeah." "You know you don't have to stay up all night, right? I'm not going anywhere bad." "I know. But trauma rewires you. Even when life is good, part of your brain keeps watch." "I trust you," I said finally. She studied me. "And I trust the world more now too. Not blindly, but enough." That was growth. Boston changed her. Not in the frightened, withdrawn way that camp had once changed her, in the expanding way. She called every evening, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. She talked about charcoal studies, late-night debates with other young artists, museums that felt like cathedrals of color. One night she said, "Dad, I think I want to study art therapy for real, not just maybe. I want to help kids who feel stuck inside something." "You'd be good at that." "I know." Confidence, not arrogance, just earned belief. Halfway through the residency, something unexpected happened. A documentary filmmaker contacted us. She was creating a series about resilience and had followed the old federal case records. She wanted to feature Isabella's art and story, with full creative control given to her. My first instinct was protective. "No cameras in her face," I said immediately. The filmmaker agreed. When I told Isabella, she surprised me again. "I'll do it," she said, "but I won't talk about the worst parts." "You don't owe anyone that." "I know. I want to focus on what came after." That became the theme. Not what was done to her, but what she built afterward. The documentary aired when she was 16. It showed her in the sunflower field, in her studio corner at home, laughing with friends, teaching younger kids at a weekend art workshop she'd started. It showed her strength without turning her into a tragedy. Letters came from all over the country. Parents thanking her, teenagers saying they felt less alone. One letter stood out. It was from a now 18-year-old boy named Daniel. "I was in a similar place, different program, different state. I never told anyone. After watching your story, I reported it. They shut it down." Isabella read the letter 3 times. Then she folded it carefully and said, "That's why." That same year, I received an offer to return offshore, triple the pay, short rotations, management position. Old me would have signed immediately. New me didn't hesitate. I declined. That evening, Isabella found me on the porch. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah, just thinking about choices." She sat beside me. "You know," she said thoughtfully, "if you ever did want to go back, I'd be okay." I looked at her. "I don't need to go back. I already came home." She leaned her head on my shoulder. 17 came fast. Driver's license, college applications, art portfolio submissions. The house felt louder and quieter at the same time. Louder with her music and friends, quieter because childhood was slipping away. On the 6th anniversary of the rescue, we didn't go back to the field. Instead, she asked to visit her mother's grave. We stood there in the soft spring wind. "I think we're okay," she said softly. "You and me?" "We are." I used to think everything good could disappear overnight. Now I think, even if something breaks, it doesn't mean it's over. I nodded. She had learned that the hard way, but she had learned it. The acceptance email from her top choice university came in March. Bachelor program in art therapy. Scholarship included. She screamed. I cried. Neither of us pretended otherwise. The night before she left for college, she stood in the kitchen, taller than her mother had been, steady in a way that made my chest ache with pride. "Dad." "Yeah, kiddo." "You know you don't have to stay up all night, right? I'm not going anywhere bad." "I know. I think life would have found another way to wake us up." She smiled. "I'm glad it was that way." "Me too." She hugged me, not clinging anymore, just strong.
I don't need you to carry me, but I'm glad you did. The morning she drove away, the house felt different. Not empty, just quieter in a new way. On the kitchen table she had left something behind, a painting. It showed a storm rolling across dark water. In the corner, a small oil rig silhouetted against lightning. But on shore, in the foreground, two figures stood in sunlight breaking through clouds. The title was written at the bottom, Home Early. I hung it in the living room, not as a reminder of what we survived, but as proof of what love does when it refuses to let go. And every time I look at it, I remember this. Healing isn't about erasing the past. It's about building something stronger than what tried to break you. And we did.